Hey, what's up, everybody? MGM here once again. I do apologize for the little hiatus I had to take, but I think I'm back now for at least a little bit. Hopefully, be a little more consistent for you guys. I apologize for that. But hey, I'm bringing you the first video in this little mini series that I'm trying to whip up for you guys. I spoke of in earlier videos. Now, I'm using this one as an introduction to the series to explain the scope of what I'm going to try to do, and to introduce you to some of the online tools that I'm going to use, as I might mention them as I go in the series. So I want to make sure that there's a collection in the description below of links that you guys can always come back to reference to, in case I foolishly forget to put links in a different video. As far as the tools themselves go, there's always tons of options, especially online. Now, I personally do all of my prep on my laptop, with an internet connection, of course. And I try to use as many free tools as I can to help when I'm building my worlds and need a little inspiration or some help. And I will try to mention some of these and some alternatives as I go on. But I will try to keep this as budget friendly as possible because money be tight and stuff. Now, right off the bat, I want to say, although everything I do will be on a computer, if you do prefer to draw and write out everything instead, there's nothing wrong with that. Just keep in mind that it will take longer and a bit more effort. My goal is to try to cut down on how much time it takes to getting these things going, especially for the newer GMs or the GMs that want a little bit of help, maybe making the process a little quicker. Now, hey, before I move forward, this is a really good time for me to, number one, introduce some of the eye candy on the table here. We have Index Card RPG Worlds on my left, in the middle, Knave 2nd Edition, and on the side here, an Adventure for Martian Crawl Classics, The War of the Worlds Invades Terra AD. Anyway, that's what you're looking at on the table when I'm talking to you. And as always, I'm not paid for any of this. Anything that you see on the table is something that I've paid for, and any of the tools that I use or publisher that I may or may not reference did not give me anything or even ask me to do this. These are just the tools that I myself use and recommend. Now, hey, let's dive in a little bit to what I'm talking about. First thing I'll talk to you about is the scope of the series, and it'll be relatively small, actually. But what I'm hoping is it should offer a repeatable but loose system to follow as one goes along in the creation process. Now, keep in mind that creation process should be an ongoing thing, even and especially as gameplay has begun. I'm of the camp that advises that GMs start really small. For example, in a fantasy game, a small town with a small surrounding area. If it's cyberpunk, maybe 4 to 6 blocks worth of the city. If it's space, maybe one portion of a planet, or better yet, a space station. Something small to start off with, and then you grow from there. I feel this is the best way to not only build a world and not overwhelm yourself with all the details of building an entire world, but it also allows the players to influence the world as gameplay emerges, which makes everything feel much more organic, and it tends to make the players more invested in the world when they realize what they're doing actually helps shape it. It makes it a little more fun, and at least in my experience, it makes them want to engage in the world more when they realize that's happening. Let that gameplay guide the lore and the history, further advancing world building. Now, for my writers out there, this does mean you're going to have to let a few things go. If you write up a huge history of the world before the game even starts, they're not going to care about that as much as you do. And that's something you kind of have to accept. That's the nature of the beast. However, if that history comes out because something during gameplay comes up that makes that important, then suddenly they're going to be much more engaged in it. So my advice to you writers who are itching to write, wait till there is something that comes up in gameplay that really grabs everybody's attention and write the history for that or the story behind that. And that's the stuff that your players are going to eat up and gives you that option to flex your writing skills a little bit when you want to. I totally understand that. So go for that. It'll be a little more satisfying than writing up a whole bunch of stuff and hoping somebody finds it. Now, moving on, I will be creating a classic fantasy setting for this series. I'm doing this mostly because it is the most popular and therefore the easiest for new GMs and players to understand at face value, at least from my experience. This is also easy for people that are coming over from that Hasbro game that are trying out other games. It's easier for them to grasp onto right away as well. Now, I will try to attempt to suggest alternatives for other genres when I can, based on my experience, or at least based on reports from sources I trust, but I will keep that part to a minimum and try to really just give you stuff I have actual experience with. Now, finally, as a little note here, the world that we will build on this little project that I'm doing here will, of course, be flavored with my personal way of flavoring things as I'm going about the creating process. And I'll be upfront about that right away. Creativity, as it is as varied as there are people to express it. So don't look at this as some definitive rule set or way of doing things by any means. Consider this more of a general recipe meant for you to take and add your own personal touch of flavor that makes it yours. Now, I do hope that you find the process of world building to be fun and a great way to express yourself creatively. If that is something that does not really appeal to you, or you just don't have the time to build your own world, then keep in mind we are in that golden age of tabletop games, and there are plenty of settings out there that can be taken to use with your game. Even worlds that have been created for other games, like maybe this one or other ones, can be used in a different game easily enough. Now, we have games out there, new games that are coming out, such as Land of Eam, Dolemwood came out recently, Crown and Skull came out recently, and these have fully made worlds already made for them. Shadow Dark just recently ended a Kickstarter of a campaign setting that's fully developed world for them to play in. There are plenty of games, both new and old, that have fully fleshed out settings to play in, complete with NPCs, factions, and histories. And of course, there's plenty of third-party creators who have published worlds to be taken and played in book and PDF form. Again, Index Card RPG is one of them. Knave 2nd Edition handles this with roll tables and gives you plenty of roll tables to help build your world, or at least your small area of world with. There's always the idea of using existing worlds in some kind of media as your starting point, such as a show or movie universe that you might already like. Remember, if you're not trying to make money off it, whatever you use at your table is open, as long as everyone else agrees with it too. I think that's going to cover the basic scope pretty well. This might change a little bit as the video series goes on, but I will try to keep that to a minimum as well. But hey, let's go and talk a little bit about the tools that I use when it comes to world building that might come into play as the series goes forward. Now, as for the online tools that I use, I will break them up into a few categories. We're going to go with inspiration, maps, virtual tabletops, and I might throw a couple extras in there just to make sure everything is at least somewhat rounded out. My intention is to suggest as many free things, but also offer paid options if that's what you're looking for. Now, if you buy physical books and that's what you really want, I'm still going to encourage you to get PDFs as well. They are really good backups, and they do make printing things out for your players a lot easier. And a lot clearer, too, if you know what I'm saying. They don't have that side thing when you're trying to hold up. You know what I'm talking about. But hey, let's talk tools really quick. First up is inspiration. Now, we can get into a whole thing about the different places you can draw inspiration from in life, but I'm going to leave that part up to you. When it comes for inspiration at your home game, use the term inspiration as loosely as you want to, because like I just said, if you're not making money off of it, you can use whatever you want. Steal and pillage from any source that you want and have fun with it. But if you're having some difficulty with that, let me give you some quick tips and tools that might help in that inspiration process and get you going on building your world. One thing to consider is look at your game of choice's Appendix N or inspiration page. This will typically list not only other games that have inspired the rules, but also the books, TV shows, movies, web series, video games, and all kinds of sources of inspiration for how they came up with the tone and aesthetic of that game. Now, one tool that I really like to use when creating worlds, NPCs, and especially adventures is roll tables. From D6 to D100 and beyond, there are many of them to choose from, both in established games like Shadow Dark, Knave 1st and 2nd Edition, Grit, Cairn, just to name a few. But there are plenty of standalone roll table products out there as well. Now, I'm going to do a video on roll tables soon where I go more into depth, so stay tuned for that. Now, for the purpose of this video series, I will direct you to some online randomizer tools, which are essentially free automated roll tables, if you want to break it down to its simplest form. Sites like Donjon, Chaos Gen, Kassoon, and Old School Essentials Generator are great examples of such online tools. They'll all be linked below. These are sites with multiple random generators to utilize. The different generators cover many aspects of world building and adventure building, such as towns, dungeons, adventures, and campaign ideas, NPCs, monsters, factions. I mean, pretty much everything you need to create the people, places, things, and the adventures to go along with all that when you're world building. Now, I'll link those and a few other online generators below, as I will do with everything that I reference in this video. Using online generators is a great way, an easy way, honestly, to get inspiration and ideas for your games. One small caveat here: even if the generator you come across says D&D or any other game for that matter, it doesn't mean that it can't be used for the game you are playing. You're really just looking for the idea. The stat blocks might be your only real concern here, but we're going to talk about that at another time on how we can make that easy. Also, don't forget to harvest adventure modules for all your gaming needs, as far as creatures, places, NPCs, even maps and items. Taking from adventure modules or even other games and including them into the game that you're playing is of the highest of traditions in the tabletop space and history. So go bonkers with it. No matter your inspiration, however, because it is abundant, there's plenty of stuff out there to get inspired from. But the game that you are playing and the people you are playing with are really important, and use that as your starting point. Choose ideas and aesthetics that match the style and tone of game that you and your table are looking for. Tone here can be defined really as the overall feel of the game world that you and your table are playing in. Is it a desperate post-apocalypse? Maybe it's a grim dark fantasy. Or maybe instead it's more of a high fantasy game with more humor and lightheartedness. These are all different tones of games that will have completely different feel and even maybe imply different kinds of play and circumstances. Don't forget the power of your table and the way that your table gets along, the tone of your personal table outside of the game, the type of humor that you engage in, the type of banter that you have that also bleeds into the game will influence the tone of the game. And you have to let that happen, GMs out there. That might influence the tone. You may, as a GM, want a much more serious game and they're going to insert humor now and again, or vice versa. Maybe you want a really funny game and they're inserting some really heavy stuff. Just roll with what the players do, combine those ideas, and make something that makes everybody in your table have a little bit of say in what's happening. I will do a video as well on players and how they influence the game and how you can use that to grow. This is just a really overall of this series that I'm doing, but we'll talk about that too in another video. I know I sound like a broken record, but I have a lot of videos scheduled, guys. I'm kind of backed up a little bit. But hey, let's move on to maps. Maps are important for world building and gameplay. The easy answer here would be to say, do a search on Google Image or wherever you look for images until you find what you want. It's free, and once again, as long as you aren't trying to make money off of it, pretty much anything goes. Some of my favorite online sources for maps, my first and foremost, honestly, is Watabu on itch.io. Please forgive me if I am not pronouncing that right, but it is linked below. Now here you're going to find multiple map generators. This is an easy one-stop place for most of the maps you might need for many games. Whether you're building an entire world or just need something for a one-shot, you can find it on this site. This is one of my go-to tools, one of my go-to sites all the time. I can't recommend these guys enough. They do great job on what they're doing, and I fully support these guys and hope that you check them out and support them as well. Now, some of the online random generator sites I listed earlier also do have some random map generators in them, mostly dungeons, but they are also helpful in those situations. Now, some other places I like to go to look for maps are places like Incarnate, Lost Atlas, and Chepeku. They all have both free and paid content. But I also want to take a moment to give a really big shout out to 2 Minute Tabletop. This is a smaller company and I utilize their maps a lot. And they do have free content, but they're very reasonably priced when you're getting paid stuff. And I just want to give them a big shout out because I really like their work. I've been following since they started, and I pick up little maps from them here and there, both the free and the paid stuff. And I've never been disappointed. Another one, I just want to give a big shout out to those guys that I personally use quite a bit, more than I probably use any of the other ones that I mentioned here. So that's why I want to give them a very specific shout out. But all of these guys do offer maps in many different genres, and they have free and paid options. So check any one of them out. Big shout out to 2 Minute Tabletop. If you're looking to make a large cyberpunk style cityscape, or maybe for some kind of science fiction style game, I really recommend that you use the city map generator at Portable Train. This does just that, and it does it really well. Go check them out, linked below. And finally, when we're talking about maps, I cannot do one of these lists without mentioning Asgard Fantasy Map Generator. Again, that's linked below. Now, this generator, if you're building a world, especially if you want to build an entire world for a campaign, this generator is the way to go. I cannot recommend it enough. I use it all the time. You're not only making the landmass that is going to be the world, but you also can put the factions in there, the places that are important. You can put in the terrains that you want. You can manipulate literally everything. Play around with the tools that are in that site and check it out. I think this is one of those indispensable online tools if you're building a world, especially in the beginning. So please check them out. All the links for these guys in the description below. But hey, do you have a great recommendation for a map generator or a source of maps? Let us know in the comments below and help guide some of these newer GMs to some great sources to make their world building a little easier for them. To round out this tool set, I want to throw a couple of extra little tools in there, little tips that I always find super helpful. These are also what I consider indispensable tools. I use them for every single game I run, no matter what genre it is. The first one is fantasy name generators. Now, a lot of people know about this one, but I love this site, and I just have to give it a huge shout out just for how darn useful the site is. It doesn't matter what kind of name you're looking for, person, place, thing, anything in between, you can find it there. If you want help on pantheons, you can get that there. There is so many different tools on this site, specifically the name creators, but there's other tools as well. I can't recommend them enough. I literally use these guys every single time I write a game. Linked in the description below. If you don't check anything else out, this is one of the ones you should definitely go and check out. The second one I would like to throw out there and give a big shout out to is Token Stamp on Roll Advantage. You can literally drag and drop just about any image you want into the space and create a token that you can use on a virtual tabletop, or you can even print it out and make figures to use on your in-person table. Either way you want to use it, it's a super useful little tool that I'm very thankful for, and another one of those indispensable ones that you'll use for every game that you run. So I can't recommend those enough. Use those tools to round out that set. You can pretty much make almost anything you want with those generators and tools. Let's talk virtual tabletop since we just hinted at those. They're a very popular and very abundant way of playing games. Now, I will say, just like I try to every time, if you can play an in-person game, even if it's just once, do it. It's a great experience. But let's face it, today's virtual tabletops are the place of choice for many games to run. And if you're someone like me who are isolated from where other gamers are, it's the way that you're going to play. So I, of course, can't do a list without naming at least a couple of them out there. Now, there are so many, I'm not going to even try to name them all. Your choice for virtual tabletop might be influenced by the aesthetic, the ease of use, the available options, the game you play, your personal abilities with tech. All that stuff might come into play. Now, as far as available virtual tabletops are concerned, the ones that I've experienced the most, I would say, is Foundry, Fantasy Grounds, and Roll20. Those will be linked below. They all have their pluses and minuses, and they're not the ones that I use now, but I've had experience with those. Some popular free ones are Cauldron Virtual Tabletop and Ogre's Tabletop. They're free ones that also are very good. For me personally, I use Owlbear Rodeo. I think it's the easiest one to use, in my opinion, of course. And if you have just one group, you can use the free version without any problems whatsoever. But that also has a paid version, just like all the other ones I mentioned here do as well. All the ones I mentioned will be linked below. They are just options for tabletops you can use. Go with whatever you like the best here. I like Owlbear because for me it just works the best and it's the easiest for me to figure out. So that's just my personal preference. Keep in mind that most of us like to use Discord or some other online communication as we run a game. So we usually combine them as I do and many others do. I like to use Discord for voice camera. If we use the camera, for sounds, for memes, pictures to set moods in, and even just for the out-of-character talk and banter that we have in my particular game and table. You guys know what I'm talking about if my players are watching this. But using that in conjunction with Owlbear, where we can roll the dice, see the maps and the tokens, and do everything you can do in a tabletop game there. Not exactly the same as in person, but pretty darn close. And it's still a really good, fun experience, especially if you're already familiar with the people that you're playing with. But if you see something else that you like, or there's a tabletop that you like to use a lot that I didn't mention, throw that in the comments below. All right, guys, I'm just doing a really quick little segment here on storage. Storage and aid in world building and keeping everything together. There's a lot of it out there. Now that you've created it all, or you're in the middle of creating it, where do you keep it? Now, a lot of people just have a file system that they use on their own. I personally use Google Drive and Google Docs for most of my writing and storing of that writing. The most popular ones that I have found out there, at least, are programs like Obsidian, Legend Keeper, Campfire, Kanka, and probably the most popular one that I'm aware of is World Anvil. Now, these are all programs with varying levels and methods of storing and organizing information for writers and creators that puts everything into one place. Honestly, these intimidate me a little bit just because of how complex they seem to be. I haven't checked them all out yet, though. And that just might be a sign of my age. Who knows? But I do plan on trying one or two of them and seeing if there's one that might work out really well for me. If that happens, I will definitely do a video and let you guys know. But I got lots of videos planned, as you may have guessed from this one, so I better move forward here. I think I gave you guys a good amount of free tools to start with and kind of gave you an idea of where I want to go with this little video series. The thing to remember about all of this is, even with all the tools I've given you, tools are just the tools. It still takes the craftsman to use skill and creativity to make those tools useful and produce something that is functional and even just nice to look at. You as a GM are that craftsman, and here I offer some tools to get you building a world. For some of you, the options I presented in this video will be enough for you to get going and start building your own world and get your game going. And that's great. I hope that I've given you some really good options here and you hit the ground running and enjoy what you do. Now, for others, examples will help. For that reason, this is just the first video in this series. As I continue, I will most likely reference at least some of the tools I suggested in this video, and hoping that you'll follow along with me as I build that small starter world. My way of doing this is certainly not the only way. I'm hoping just to inspire you, if nothing else, to come up with your own way, or to take what I've done and twist it into what makes sense to you. Now, all that being said, my people, I think this is a great place to end this video. The next one I put out should be on the very beginning of world building and choosing a starting point. We'll see how this all goes. I feel like maybe I'm being more ambitious than I have time for, but we'll find out. I think I might be able to break this up in small enough bits to make it work. Building worlds and filling them with lore, places, people, monsters, and situations is such a fun and rewarding part of the hobby that has been around since its foundation. I hope this series can help motivate and inspire you guys to find your path to create so you and your players can play for fun first. Thanks for watching, everybody.